Hello, before you start watching this video, I recommend subscribing to my channel Sage Tales. Subscribe and like.
Rita, a dedicated full-time homemaker, juggles the responsibilities of caring for her 3 children and her husband, who has been paralyzed for the past 3 years. Her husband's paralysis resulted from a severe heat stroke while he was working as a field engineer. One fateful day, he lost consciousness while on duty due to the scorching heat in an open field. Standing atop a 3-story building, he plummeted to the ground, causing great concern and commotion. Fortunately, prompt medical attention saved his life, but it was an utterly devastating experience for Rita. Upon receiving the phone call about her husband's accident, Rita's body quivered uncontrollably, unable to grasp the news she had just heard. The weight of uncertainty pressed upon her, and thoughts of losing her beloved husband flooded her mind. Hurriedly gathering the details of the hospital, she rushed to his side, only to find that her mother-in-law had arrived earlier, displaying her usual hysterics and panic. Brian, calm down. Everything will be all right," Rita reassured her distressed mother-in-law. But her words fell on deaf ears as her mother-in-law continued to express her fear and worry in an agitated manner. Though Rita had grown accustomed to her mother-in-law's abrasive attitude towards her, constantly shouting or nagging, she chose to rise above the negativity. Despite the moments when she longed to speak her mind, Rita opted to maintain her composure and remained silent. For nearly 2 weeks, Rita remained faithfully at her husband's side, attentively tending to his every need. She insisted on taking on the caregiving role herself, knowing that her presence and support were crucial during this challenging time. However, in the 2nd week, her mother-in-law insisted on assuming control. She informed Rita that it was time for her to return to work, emphasizing the importance of saving money to cover potential medical expenses if her husband's hospital stay were to be prolonged. Though conflicted, Rita reluctantly agreed, realizing the financial strain the situation had placed on their family. Determined to prioritize her husband's recovery, Rita reiterated her stance to her mother-in-law, expressing her willingness to forego work and be present during this crucial phase. However, her mother-in-law remained resolute in her insistence. "The doctor assures us that he is stable now. Don't worry, I'll take care of him. You should go to work tomorrow," her mother-in-law insisted, convinced that Rita's presence was unnecessary. "I've already secured a leave of absence for you from your boss. He understands the situation." To Rita's surprise, her mother-in-law's reaction was filled with anger this time, leaving her puzzled. Yet, aware of her 2-week work leave, she explained that her boss had granted her the time off, understanding the gravity of her husband's condition. Reluctantly, Rita had no choice but to yield to her mother-in-law's persistence. Perhaps her mother-in-law desired some private time with her son, and maybe the financial burden weighed heavily on her mind. With a heavy heart, Rita set off for the office the following day, channeling all her time and energy into her work. Her colleagues at the office were taken aback by her presence, considering they were well aware of her husband's critical condition. Explaining her need to work diligently for the sake of their finances, Rita mentioned that her boss had graciously offered her increased pay for the month, specifically to assist with the mounting hospital bills and aid in her husband's recovery. Soon, the results of her husband's numerous tests were delivered, bringing a disheartening revelation. The doctor sullenly explained, "I'm deeply sorry to inform you, Mrs. Sanders, but your husband's fall has resulted in paralysis on the right side of his body. Half of his body is affected. However, there is still hope for recovery." Overwhelmed by the news, Rita expressed her gratitude to the doctor, her voice filled with hope. "Thank you so much, doctor. I appreciate your efforts in alleviating his condition. Please do everything within your power." Her mother-in-law, standing beside her, added her plea for the doctor to give her son the best care possible. The doctor's report became a blur to Rita as her mother-in-law interrupted him, preventing her from hearing the full extent of the prognosis. However, one thing was certain: Her husband was now paralyzed, destined to be bedridden for the rest of his days. Rita's heart sank at the thought of her beloved spouse enduring such suffering. She couldn't bear to see him in this condition. Her mother-in-law insisted on staying with them, expressing her desire to personally care for her son while Rita worked. Although appreciative of the gesture, Rita didn't want to burden her aging mother-in-law. They could afford to hire a professional caregiver, but her mother-in-law remained resolute in her determination to take care of her son herself. After her husband's discharge from the hospital, her mother-in-law promptly moved in with them. 3 long years had passed since the dreadful accident, during which they had pursued every possible intervention and therapy to facilitate his recovery. However, progress seemed elusive, and their efforts appeared to yield no results. Rita devoted herself to earning money for her family, ensuring her husband's medical expenses were covered. Meanwhile, her mother-in-law accompanied her husband to therapy sessions and medical interventions, providing updates after each session. Yet the reports remained disheartening, with no signs of improvement. The recurring cycle of repetitive sessions left Rita questioning whether the doctor or her mother-in-law were somehow at fault. Reluctant to harbor ill thoughts towards her mother-in-law, Rita couldn't help but entertain doubts. However, as a family, she resolved not to jump to conclusions. One weekend, she approached her mother-in-law and expressed her desire to take over the caregiving duties for her husband's shift. Sitting beside her husband, observing his struggle with paralysis, Rita's heart ached. With each passing day, she felt the weight of their situation intensify. Every day was a battle, and she was determined to provide the care and support her husband needed, even if it meant confronting the uncertainties that loomed over their lives. Rita found herself in a constant battle where victory seemed elusive. Determined to maintain a connection with her husband, she shared stories of her day and significant memories, even if he couldn't fully comprehend her words. It was her way of reminding him that he was still special, that he was still her beloved husband. Every week, she gazed at him lying motionless on his bed, feeling the hope of his recovery slip away. During these challenging times, her mother-in-law appeared to be a pillar of strength, holding their family together. However, a nagging sense of suspicion began to take root within Rita. It was an instinctual gut feeling, indicating that something was amiss. One evening, she returned home earlier than usual and headed straight for her husband's bedroom. But just as she was about to enter, she overheard her mother-in-law engaged in conversation, and she could have sworn she heard her husband's voice too. Startled, she rushed to open the door, only to find it locked. She desperately tried to force it open, knocking and pleading, but it took her mother-in-law a whole 2 minutes before finally unlocking it. Once inside, everything seemed normal. Her husband lay there with a drip attached to his veins, and the room appeared undisturbed. Filled with curiosity, Rita asked, "Who were you talking to?" Her mother-in-law rolled her eyes and showed her the phone. "Just a friend. What's the big deal?" Exhausted by her mother-in-law's strange behavior, Rita let out a sigh and proceeded to care for her husband. She no longer wanted to engage in the peculiarities that seemed to surround her. There were instances when her mother-in-law insisted on taking complete control over her husband's care, refusing to let Rita tend to him or accompany him to medical appointments. Her possessiveness and protectiveness raised red flags, intensifying Rita's lingering sense that something was off. Something just didn't sit right. "Brian, I can take care of Lucas. I want to be the one helping him with his daily activities. Please, let me take care of my husband," Rita implored, her voice filled with both determination and concern. Despite the tension between them, Rita firmly expressed her desire to be actively involved in her husband's care. She acknowledged her mother-in-law's assistance, but emphasized that, as his wife, it was her duty to play an integral role in his well-being. Her mother-in-law's expression turned icy, and she moved closer, lowering her voice with a hint of menace. "You don't understand, Rita. I know what Lucas needs. Trust me, I am doing everything in his best interest." Though frustration bubbled within her, Rita maintained her composure. "I appreciate your help, but I want to be an active participant in Luca's care. I want to accompany him to therapy sessions and medical consultations. I want to be there for him." Narrowing her eyes, her mother-in-law's suspicion became palpable, leading her to question Rita's motives. "Why are you insisting on being involved, Rita? Are you trying to control everything? I've been the one taking care of him, sacrificing my own time and energy." Rita's heart sank, wounded by her mother-in-law's accusations. It was her husband they were discussing, and she had no intention of seizing control. "Brian, I'm not trying to control anything. I simply want to support my husband. I love him, and I want to be there for him in every possible way." Driven by frustration, her mother-in-law pushed her away, causing Rita to stumble and hit the ground. "He is my son, and you are nothing but an outsider. Don't go telling me who you are and what you want to do because I don't care." Overwhelmed by the hurtful words, Rita remained silent, contemplating the situation. She realized her mother-in-law's behavior was becoming increasingly erratic and possessive. Deep down, she had always harbored doubts about placing her full trust in her. Her mother-in-law hadn't even shared important medical information with her, refusing to provide any doctor's reports or updates. Recognizing that she couldn't rely on her mother-in-law for cooperation or transparency, Rita silently made her decision. It was clear that her mother-in-law's grip on control had gone too far. She left her on the spot, knowing she had to navigate this challenging situation alone. Suspicions growing stronger, Rita decided to take matters into her own hands one fateful Sunday afternoon. Driven by her gut instinct, she discreetly installed a hidden camera in her husband's bedroom, determined to uncover the truth behind her mother-in-law's peculiar behavior. Seizing an opportunity during their mandatory afternoon stroll in the garden, Rita carefully placed the camera in a spot where it would go unnoticed. For an entire week, she anxiously awaited the moment when she could review the footage, hoping to unveil the secrets that lay hidden. On a particular day, her mother-in-law took her husband to the hospital for another therapy session, which Rita had paid for. Something felt off about this particular session, fueling her suspicions. Despite her offer to drive them, her mother-in-law stubbornly refused, leaving Rita with the opportunity she had been waiting for. As the recordings played, Rita's heart raced with anticipation, her world about to shatter. Overwhelmed with shock, she covered her mouth, unable to believe what she was witnessing. The footage revealed her supposedly paralyzed husband walking and conversing effortlessly with his mother. Her body trembled, and her heart pounded in her chest as the reality of their deception sank in. In disbelief, Rita watched the footage intently, unable to comprehend how they could deceive her in such a way. Their actions portrayed a sense of normalcy whenever she was absent. Overwhelmed by shock and disbelief, tears welled up in her eyes. The hidden camera had also captured audio, allowing her to hear their conversations. However, she couldn't bear to listen to the painful truth they exchanged. It hurt too much to comprehend the depth of their deceit. Listening to their conversation, each word felt like a knife piercing Rita's heart. She discovered that her husband had been healed months ago, during the initial stages of his therapy. They had deliberately deceived her, making her a fool. But the heartbreak didn't end there. Another conversation revealed their involvement in a secret business venture, using her money without her knowledge. "Did you transfer the money from Rita's account to our secret business account?" her mother-in-law asked, revealing their sinister plot. "My son, I've been doing it regularly. She won't suspect a thing," her husband responded, smirking and chuckling with an evil air. "Excellent. She worked so hard, oblivious to our plans. Soon, we'll have everything we want." Rita's heart shattered as she watched her husband laugh, basking in their deceitful victory. Their betrayal was incomprehensible. They had used her money, plotted behind her back, and mocked her unwavering devotion. This was the ultimate betrayal. Determined not to let them escape with their deception, Rita continued watching, capturing every incriminating conversation on the hidden camera. Their plan to establish a secret business and leave her with nothing was laid bare before her eyes. They reveled in their partnership, relishing the thrill of their secret crime, while planning her downfall. Filled with tears, Rita realized the extent of their betrayal. But she was resolute. She wouldn't allow them to take advantage of her any longer. She would expose their lies and reclaim what was rightfully hers. As the truth unfolded, another horrifying realization dawned on her: the money. I am finally ready to unveil it to you all. You see, I have discovered a truth that has shaken me to the core, a truth that involves the very people standing before you. With a heavy heart, I must reveal the deceit and betrayal that has transpired. The room fell into a stunned silence, curiosity and anticipation filling the air. Rita took a deep breath, steadying herself, and continued, her voice laced with determination. For years, I believed that my husband's recovery was our top priority. I tirelessly worked and sacrificed, thinking every penny went towards his medical expenses. But little did I know that my money was being funneled into a secret business venture orchestrated by my husband and my mother-in-law. Gasps of surprise echoed through the room, eyes darting between Rita, her husband, and her mother-in-law. The weight of their deception began to sink in. I have proof of their lies, Rita declared, projecting the captured photographs onto a screen for everyone to see. These images expose the truth and the extent of their betrayal. Faces contorted with shock and disbelief as the evidence unraveled before them. Rita's revenge was not merely about personal justice. It was about shedding light on their deceit, making sure they faced the consequences of their actions. But I couldn't stop at revealing the truth. I wanted them to feel the pain they inflicted upon me. Rita continued, her voice steady yet filled with an unyielding resolve. Tonight, I stand here to reclaim my dignity and expose their monstrosity. As the guests absorbed the magnitude of the situation, Rita's eyes met her husband's and her mother-in-law's. There was no remorse or guilt in their expressions, only arrogance and a sense of entitlement. My dear guests, I implore you to witness this act of justice. Let their masks fall, for tonight, their true faces will be revealed. With the room captivated by her words, Rita prepared to reveal the full extent of their deception, leaving no room for doubt or denial. The storm she had patiently brewed was about to unleash its fury, exposing the treachery and ensuring that the truth prevailed. The atmosphere in the venue shifted as the truth unfolded before the guests' eyes. Rita's husband, in a fit of desperation, stood up from his wheelchair and exclaimed, "That's mine." The crowd gasped in astonishment, their expressions reflecting a mix of bewilderment and shock. Rita's husband, who was supposedly paralyzed, had suddenly risen and was shouting with an intensity that betrayed his deceit. In response, Rita confidently retorted, "Oh, Lucas, you're mistaken. This is my business. You and your mother used all my money, remember? You played games with me, pretending to be paralyzed when you were already healed. And now, your secret has been unveiled." The room fell into a stunned silence, broken only by murmurs and whispers as the guests tried to comprehend the extent of the deception. The realization dawned on them that Lucas had never been paralyzed. He's not paralyzed. All this time, someone exclaimed, connecting the dots and grasping the web of lies they had unknowingly been a part of. Panicked, Rita's mother-in-law attempted to regain control of the situation, desperately offering explanations. But Rita refused to let her deceive anyone further. She interrupted, sternly addressing her husband. "Save your explanation, Brian. Your lies and deceit have been exposed." Taking a folder from behind the stage, Rita held up several pictures showcasing their secret business and their collaboration, evidence of their treachery. She urged the guests to examine the incriminating photos, revealing the truth they had concealed. "Look at these pictures, everyone. This is the truth they hid from us. They used my hard-earned money to build this business behind my back," Rita declared, her voice filled with a mixture of anger and disappointment. The guests, now aware of the extent of the betrayal, studied the evidence presented before them. Anger welled up within them, their disappointment evident on their faces. The room became charged with a collective sense of indignation, as the realization of the deception sank in for each individual present. The guests around Rita expressed their disbelief at the extent of the deception and offered their support and sympathy. They condemned her husband and mother-in-law for taking advantage of her trust, acknowledging that they should be ashamed of their actions. Rita's husband, overwhelmed by anger, abandoned his pretense and began walking, no longer paralyzed. The room fell into complete silence, shock evident on every face. In a desperate attempt to deflect blame, he pointed to his mother, admitting that it was all her idea. Rita's gaze met her husband's, a mixture of sadness and anger in her eyes. "I trusted you, Lucas. We were supposed to face this challenge together," she said, her voice filled with disappointment. As the truth unfolded, both her husband and mother-in-law faced the consequences of their actions. They pleaded for forgiveness, their deceit unraveling in front of everyone. Her husband, on his knees, covered his face with tears of guilt. Her mother-in-law, however, remained stubborn and proud, refusing to swallow her pride. In that moment, Rita reclaimed her power, cutting all ties with them. She asserted ownership of the house and the business, taking control of her life once again. Leaving them at the venue without uttering a word, Rita had finally had enough. The weight of their betrayal had caused them dearly, and they were forever cast out of her life. Liberated from their manipulation and lies, she focused on rebuilding her life and finding happiness. The wounds inflicted by their betrayal would take time to heal, but Rita was determined to leave the past behind and embrace a future filled with honesty and authenticity. With newfound strength, she moved forward, never allowing herself to be manipulated again, and sought a life that was true to herself. The moral of this story is that trust and loyalty are crucial in relationships, especially in marriage and family. It emphasizes the importance of open communication and honesty between partners. In my opinion, this story highlights the devastating impact of betrayal and deception within a marriage. It serves as a reminder to prioritize trust, transparency, and mutual respect in our relationships. Building a strong foundation based on honesty and integrity is essential for maintaining a healthy and fulfilling partnership.